So, welcome. Welcome back. I see there's some Sangha members that are just coming back from the summer break for the first time. So, welcome back to you. Special welcome if you're here for the first time. I can see a few names that seem to be new to the Sangha. Maybe it's just me. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're watching this on replay, welcome to you as well. And yes, we'll be starting very soon our session today. This week we have Christine Kupfer guiding us, skippering us through this navigation in constant change. Christine has been teaching with Sangha Life for a while now, and she's also been a meditation teacher for a few years. He engaged in Zen as a young adult, looking for who she really was, and then completed a postgraduate degree in Buddhist psychology and mindfulness-based psychotherapy at Karuna Institute in the UK. She also met Martin Aylward, our founding teacher, in 2016, and trained with him as a mindfulness teacher. She lives in Geneva, Switzerland, and she has been supporting spiritually and, in their personal journeys a lot of people for over 2 decades now. So we're in good hands for this navigation. And just a quick reminder of how this works. And if you're here for the first time, just to let you know that we'll be here for the next hour. We'll have a short talk on the theme. Then Christine will guide us into silent practice. And then hopefully, if everything goes well, internet supports us, we'll have some time for questions. For the questions, you can use the chat on your right side of the screen. If you use the chat to ask your written questions, please type question in capital letters so that Christine can differentiate that and just spot them. You can also come live on screen if you wish to. For that, you have a virtual hand on the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, I will see your request, and as far as possible, I'll do my best to bring you on so you can interact with Christine. Last thing is the habitual speech of dana, the Buddhist practice of generosity, the big wheel of interconnection, which is the ground basis of Sangha Life, of all this work we do. Like Martin says, this is freely offered. Everything, or almost everything that we do at Sangha Life is completely freely offered. But it's not free, of course, because it's a platform. There's people working many hours and brainstorming new ideas, new ways of bringing the Dharma to an increasing community. And all of this has its monetized costs. This is a monetized world. So, as much as you can, whenever you can, please donate. I'll let you have the link for the Dana and use it at your discretion. It doesn't matter if it's a big amount, if it's a small amount, if it's a regular amount, if it's a one-off. The intention and the way you put your heart into it is what matters, because it means that you see a purpose in it. like we see the purpose in being here and conveying the Dharma. So it's a way of keeping this relation going on and thriving. So feel free to donate. And if you can't donate for many good reasons, that's fine too. You're here, and that's the important. Your generosity is also conveyed by the fact that you are here every day and you practice and you help us be here. Okay, that'll be all from me. So I'm just going to get myself on backstage and practice with you all. Thank you, Christine. Thank you all, and have a nice session.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you again. Nice to read all your greetings, and nice to read where you're living and how the weather is. Here in Switzerland, the weather's good. It's still really summer, actually, quite hot, much hotter than it used to be. Yeah. So let's continue with our navigation with constant change. And so we'll be exploring this theme from different angles this week and during the month, because you'll have the opportunity, if you're here, to explore constant change with other teachers all through September. Yesterday, after my intro, we did a little inquiry to see the process of change in your life, how it manifests in a personal way. And then we practiced meditation through noticing our breath, our in-breath and our out-breath. Our breath changes constantly. So this is a foundational meditation, and we'll do it again today and expand on other aspects. So meditation on the breath is really an anchor in the body. And to explore change, it's really good to stay connected with the body. Constant change, impermanence, is at the core of the Buddha's teaching. Actually, all of his teachings stem from the truth that everything arises and passes. Anicca in Pali. And it is the cause of suffering. Dukkha in Pali. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence is deeply rooted in his own story, in the story of his life. When he still was a young prince called Siddhartha Gautama. So today I would like to start this session by telling you the story of the 4 sites which recount Siddhartha Gautama's encounter with impermanence when he was a young prince. These 4 sites motivated him to renounce the world and begin his quest for enlightenment. So if you're interested, you can find the narrative of the 4 sites in many texts. And the one I read was the Lalitavistara Sutra, a lengthy and colorful biographical account of the Buddha's life, full of gods, devas, astrologers, miracles, and dreams. You can also find a beautiful narrative of the Buddha's life written by Thich Nhat Hanh called Old Path, White Clouds. So this is the story of the four Souths. Siddhartha Gautama, who later would become the Buddha, was the son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya of the Shaki clan. And they lived in a small kingdom in what is now modern Nepal. When Queen Maya was pregnant with Siddhartha Gautama, she had a dream. In this dream, a magnificent white elephant with 6 tusks descended from the heavens and approached his mother. The elephant held a brilliant pink lotus in its trunk and placed the flower within the queen's body. And then the elephant entered her body too. And in this moment, Siddhartha's mother was filled with pure bliss and the feeling that she never again would know suffering, worry, or pain. Her husband, King Suddhodana, called all the priests of the city to come explain the meaning of the queen's dream. They said, "Your Majesty, the queen will give birth to a son who is destined to be a great leader. He will either become a mighty emperor who rules throughout the 4 directions, or a great teacher who will show the way of truth to all beings in heaven and earth." King Suddhodana wanted his son to become a great king rather than a spiritual leader. So he raised Siddhartha in great luxury and kept him within the palace's boundaries, away from any form of suffering and protected from all the harsh realities of life. So Siddhartha grew up with everything he could wish for. He lived in a divine palace. He was served refined meals every day. The palace's gardens were full of fragrant flowers and ponds with lotuses in full bloom and fishes. Birds of all kinds were singing all day to Siddhartha's glory. The prince wore clothes of the finest quality, and he was adorned with flower garlands and jewelry. Most of the day, he lay on a perfect couch, surrounded by young maidens that resembled goddesses, and who sang sweet songs to him and played delicate melodies on their flutes and other instruments. But King Suddhodana was still worried. He had a dream of Siddhartha leaving the palace, dressed in saffron-colored robes. So he started scheming. My young prince must never set foot in the palace gardens. Too dangerous. From now on, he must always stay inside the palace with the maidens, so that he will be addicted to their pleasures. He must never leave us. Then, in order for the prince to enjoy himself, he built 3 palaces for each of the 3 seasons, the hot, the rainy, and the cold seasons. And at each palace, 500 guardsmen walked up and down the staircase. So everyone thought, the young prince will never be able to leave without being noticed. But at the age of 29, Siddhartha began to feel a sense of restlessness and of dissatisfaction. His life was too sheltered. And so he ventured out into the city on 4 different occasions, despite his father's attempts to prevent him to leave the palace. And it was during these 4 outings that he encountered the 4 sights that would completely change his understanding of life. The first sight, Siddhartha saw an elderly man. He was so skinny that the veins on his body protruded. His teeth had fallen out, and he was covered in wrinkles everywhere. His hair was gray, and he was hunched over. He was weak and broken. He had to use a stick to keep himself from falling. He was in pain, and his vitality was long gone. The only sounds that emerged from his throat were a dry wheezing. All his limbs were shaking and trembling as he stood there on the road. Siddhartha had never seen old age before. And so he asked his charioteer, Shana, what this was about. And Shana told him that aging is a natural part of life, and that everyone, including himself, would one day grow old. The sight of the old man confronted Siddhartha with the truth that youth and vitality are not permanent. It challenged his previous understanding, which had been shaped by his sheltered life in the palace, where he was protected from the realities of old age. The second sight. On his second journey to the city, Siddhartha saw a man suffering from disease. His body was weak, and he was suffering greatly as he lay in his own urine and excrements. There was no one to take care of him or assist him, and he was breathing with the greatest difficulty. So again, Siddhartha asked Shana about this. And Shana the charioteer explained that sickness is something everyone must experience at some point in their lives. It revealed to Siddhartha the unescapable reality of illness. Just as youth is impermanent, health is also impermanent. Body is subject to conditions that are beyond our control. This realization deepened Siddhartha's understanding of the unescapable nature of suffering that arises from the impermanence of aging and health. The third sight was that of a dead body being carried to a cremation ground. The corpse was surrounded by a group of relatives who wailed, cried, and lamented. As the crowd followed the deceased, they pulled out their hair, threw dust on their heads, beat their chests, and lamented loudly. Again, Siddhartha asked Shana the charioteer about this, who answered, "Your Highness, this man has died. Never again shall he see his parents, his wife, or his children. He must abandon all of his possessions, his house, his friends, and his relatives, and must proceed to the next world, where he shall never see his relatives again." The third sound was very powerful for Siddhartha. It made him realize that life itself is impermanent. No one can avoid death. And also, he realized that clinging to life, clinging to possessions, or clinging to any worldly experience is useless, because ultimately everything is destined to pass away. The fourth sight, the final sight, was that of a wandering monk who had renounced the world in search of spiritual liberation. Siddhartha noticed that the monk was serene and peaceful, even though he had witnessed suffering, aging, and death. His behavior was beautiful and exquisite, as was the way he walked. The way he wore his robes and his offering bowl was delightful to see. The sight of the wandering monk provided Siddhartha with a potential solution. While the three previous sights highlighted the suffering caused by impermanence, the monk, on the contrary, showed the way to peace and liberation through the acceptance of impermanence. This fourth encounter inspired Siddhartha to seek a way to free himself from suffering by understanding and embracing the fleeting nature of existence. And Siddhartha decided to renounce his royal life. He left the palace secretly in the middle of the night, abandoning his wealth, his family, and his future as a king. This event marks the beginning of Siddhartha's journey to become his journey towards becoming the Buddha. So I find the story of the four sights very inspiring. Although we live 2,500 years later, we can draw many parallels with our own lives. I don't know how it is where you live, but here in Switzerland, where I live, we live with much more wealth than we really need. Our life is centered on pleasures, on what we like, what we want, and we try to get rid of what we don't like and what we don't want, and everything that doesn't fit our plans. Much like King Suddhodana, we believe that we can secure our power, protect our possessions and our achievements. This is how we hide the reality of our death from ourselves. But life takes care of waking us up. One day, we wake up with gray hair. Our body no longer has the same beauty as before. A loved one falls ill and dies. And we feel helpless, devastated. Like Siddhartha Gautama, we can do nothing against the law of life and death. However, there is a path to freedom and peace. In the midst of impermanence, following the Buddha, let us embark on this path to understand and embrace the fleeting nature of existence. Leaving the palace is a metaphor. We can continue the journey right here, wherever we are. The key to peace in the midst of impermanence is the acceptance of impermanence. Acceptance of impermanence. How does one do that? The first thing is to see impermanence. And through meditation, we have the opportunity to really get to know constant change, to see it, and to follow the flow. To know the flow is to learn to even appreciate the flow. So let's transition into practice. Contemplating the movement of impermanence in the body. Focusing again on the breath and expanding to sounds and sensations that arise and disappear. So find your seat. And I will ring the bell. Here it goes. settling in our body, connecting with the earth that is supporting us, connecting with the sky above us, and turning our attention within, sensing the settling process. Dropping our attention down, deep. If you sense some restlessness, some nervousness, you might want to take 3 big breaths. In breath through the nose, out breath through the mouth. And connecting with impermanence right here. Our breath coming and going. Letting our attention gently settle in our breath. Nothing to do. It arises by itself and disappears by itself. We are right here with our breath. Breathing in, we know. We are breathing in. Breathing out. We know. We are breathing out. In and out. It comes and goes. Always changing. Always new. There is only this coming and going. There is only this arising and passing. And we know it intimately. For the first time, right here. Letting go of all thinking, all projects, letting go of all wish to change anything, letting go of all struggle about attaining something or pushing away something. knowing the flow. Resting on the flow of breath. And expanding our awareness of the flow with sounds. Sounds and silence. Coming and going. There is only a sound streaming through our awareness. And we know it. An intimate knowing. Right here. Always new. And the silence. Deep, intimate silence. resting on the flow of breath. Resting on the flow of sounds. Dissolving any tension through resting. So I never know if you can hear the bell. So if you didn't hear it, this is the end of the meditation. And we have some time now for sharing questions. So there was a question yesterday. Let's see if I can remember it. Yeah. Um, I think it was about the knowing quality. So we know the in-breath when we breathe in, and we know the out-breath when we breathe out. And the question was about the permanence of the knowing quality. So yes, the knowing quality is always here. Awareness is always here. Whereas the in-breath arises and disappears, and all conditioned phenomena arise and disappear, awareness is always here. So I hope this answers the question that I couldn't answer yesterday because of the tech problems. So I just read that the bell was too loud. I'm sorry. Sometimes we can't hear it. Sometimes it's too loud. So yeah, impermanence. So for now, I can't see any questions. And that's okay. That's fine. So we still have 5 minutes here. We can just rest so that we can gently transition in the day. I find it interesting in the day to come back to my breathing. I find it so helpful to come back right here during activities. Just this awareness of coming and going can really slow me down and help me appreciate the activity I am doing. Yeah, I see that some people have had problems with freeze. Can't do much about that, I'm afraid. So yeah, let us all move through the day with peace. Thank you all for being here this morning. And looking forward to seeing you tomorrow again. So, thank you, everyone. I'm reading the chat as I'm ready to say goodbye. Thank you all.